What's up, what's up? Welcome to this week's episode of All Over Voiceover with Kiff VH, and I am your host, Kiff Vanden Heuvel. This week, All Over Voiceover is being brought to you in part by Bookable Voice Coaching and Demos. They provide one-on-one coaching, demo production, workshops, and VO workouts. Workouts, not VO workouts. And what they do is truly amazing. And so they can give you the jumpstart your VO career needs and the tune-up it needs as well. So check out www.bookablevo.com and sign up to receive updates and get more info on how they can help you grow. Bookable voice demos and coaching. Thank you so much for your support, you guys. And thank you to tuning in. And thank you to my amazing guests who are in studio today, Cissy Jones and Rich Sommer. Thank you so much for coming in, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You guys, I mean, Cissy, I've known you for off and on. We've known each other off and on.
We have,
We've been friends and then not friends.
It's an off-on friendship.
And then friends.
Friends again, not friends again.
It's like when Harry met Sally.
It's exactly it. We come together, hang out, and then we completely sever ties.
No restaurant scene, though.
That's right.
I sat at that table. I was just in New York for 3 months, and I sat at my dad came to town, and we sat at the table, got the picture under the thing.
With your dad?
Yeah, a little weird having, now that I'm saying it out loud, sitting there with my dad. But I went to the Katz's and sat at the table.
It's Katz's?
Katz's Delicatessen. Yeah.
Wow.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And how long were you in New York for?
I was 3 months to the day, actually. I got there January 4th, and I left April 4th.
Wow. And you were doing Buried Child, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, that laugh riot.
Had you done Sam Shepard before? Or was it
I
the first
did
time?
a Sam Shepard play once in grad school. I did Lie of the Mind. But oddly, when he was with Jessica Lange, they moved to my hometown in Minnesota when I was growing up. So I used to see Sam and Jessica around downtown. He was the first playwright that I ever had sort of a cognizance of outside of, being handed his plays in school.
Sure.
So I have read Sam Shepard over the years, have always wanted to do Sam Shepard. And the one we did in grad school was fine, except it was, 25-year-olds playing 60. So this was age-appropriate
Totally
casting.
Totally believable.
A more fulfilling experience, I think.
I believe it. It's nice to finally grow out of, when you're in your 20s doing the college plays. I remember doing Streetcar Named Desire at my Christian liberal arts college in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with a bunch of other Covenant youths trying to tackle these issues, and you just have no concept or life experience to draw from.
I was Tevye, my senior year of college, age 22.
I auditioned to be Tevye's wife in my high school.
You didn't get to be Golda.
Did not get to be Golda.
Golda. We could have really done something you and me, in our early 20s.
The sexual chemistry
That's right.
of this couple that married together for 50 years.
And now they're miserable.
Tradition. Oh, that's
we know a lot about tradition.
That's right.
About having 5 daughters.
Sure, matchmakers and whatnot. The importance of marriage.
Do you? Do you have a theater background or a lot of theater experience?
No.
Really?
I was Julius Caesar when I was 12 years old, but it's only because I had a deeper voice than all the guys. And I remember telling my dad I wanted to be an actress when I was 6, and he was like, no. So I actually have a business degree and a Spanish degree.
No kidding.
So I worked in the Silicon Valley for about 10 years before I made the switch.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
No kidding. Where are you from originally?
Boise, Idaho.
Oh, that's right. But
Yes.
Boise, we were just discussing Boise,
Booming
Idaho.
metropolis.
Now, you really hit that S in Boise.
Yes,
Is
because if you're a local, you say Boise.
Okay.
If
Really?
you are an outsider, you say Boise.
With a Z.
Now,
Boise.
we should be cool and say Boise.
Totally.
From now on, we'll say
Unless
Boise.
you want
It's
people to go, ugh, what are
it's
you,
like Oregon.
Californians? Ugh.
Yeah, right.
I know
Oregon.
about there's Sherry, my wife worked there, talks about this Coke and wine.
Oh, yeah.
Is it the Bath people? What is the name?
wait.
The Bath people. Sorry. The Bath people. From the baths.
Because then nobody else bathes.
Right.
So just,
I just referenced something that
Those
doesn't
guys are the
exist.
Bath
Is it
people.
possible?
I'm going to smile and nod and go, uh-huh, sure.
So you've never heard of Coca-Cola and wine?
You never heard of Coca-Cola and wine?
I drank Coca-Cola and wine when I lived in Spain, but that's a different story.
Okay, but that was what I had heard, that Spanish people in particular.
Oh, the Basques.
The Basques.
Not
There
the
you
Basques.
go. Sweet. Vindicated.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
What a good...
That makes me feel so much better. The Basque people.
I feel better, too.
'Cause I didn't want to say Basque like basking shark. I had it totally wrong.
No, there's a very large Basque population in Idaho. The largest outside of País Vasco in the world is in Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the Bath population like?
I don't know. They're the ones that bathe. The rest of us
that's
don't.
right.
It's a very clean city, so I assume that. So what led you out of Silicon Valley? What was the transition into doing this stuff?
Yeah. So I always kind of think it was like the beginning of Fight Club. You know, where Ed Norton was like watching infomercials and was like, "I am Jack's failing liver." Like that was my soul. And I was getting ready for work. You know, one of those mornings when my alarm clock went off, and the first thought that goes through your head is. And I heard Nancy Cartwright on the radio, who's the voice of Bart Simpson, and she was talking about voiceover and what a great job it was. And I was like, yeah, no kidding. And she said, you guys in the Bay Area, where I lived at the time, she's like, you are so lucky. You have one of the best voiceover schools in the country right here. And I was like, ring-a-ling-a-ling, hello. I got on the phone that day. I started taking classes that week. And 2 weeks later, I left my career.
Wow.
2 weeks later?
2 years later.
2 years
Did I
later.
say
Okay.
weeks?
I don't know.
Said-
I heard.
said
I'm
weeks,
a
but it
protege,
would-
guys.
that's all right. That's
totally
pretty
a
amazing.
protege. 2 years later, and then my husband and I moved to Los Angeles, and it's been about 5 years.
That's great.
Still 2 years from zero to move away from job to do voiceover.
It
is
wasn't
amazing.
terrifying at all.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I didn't get a lot of sideways glances at like family get-togethers. You're going to do what? But it's worked out really well.
It is interesting about VO work. I've found, and I mean, I started in Toledo doing on-hold messaging.
That's where I was born.
Were you
I just
really?
wanna
You were
be-
born in Toledo?
I was born in Toledo.
It's a great city. I love Toledo.
So I've been told. I
Really,
left when
really
I was about 6 weeks old.
Oh man, you missed the best time. You could have. There were so many amazing things you could have
I
seen.
heard the first 6
Missing
weeks are the
out.
best 6 weeks. So from there, I felt okay.
Did you ever make it to Tony Pacos?
I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
I still go back whenever I'm in Detroit.
Did you have
I'll drive
teeth
down
at
there.
that point?
No. I was suckling at my
A
mother's.
suckling.
Yes.
But it's interesting to me about VO work and about, in particular, commercials. In that, well, not only because that was kind of all that there was in that market aside from on-hold messaging, but if you're good at pattern recognition and if you've got a good ear, you can make that transition into that particular type of work.
Yeah.
Not necessarily immediately, but quick enough to like, I mean, I wasn't chasing it long in that market, largely because there wasn't a lot of folks in that market either, you know, but it helped build that kind of, so for a transitional time, it wasn't epic.
No, it's funny because I remember when I was a kid, like watching Scooby-Doo. I have this very distinct memory of watching Scooby-Doo, and the day I realized that there were black lines around the characters, which meant that they weren't like real, and that there was somebody behind there providing a voice, and I was like, oh, you know, it was like the clouds parted and the rays from heaven came down, and I was like, I want to go to there, and then it took me like 15 years to figure that out. So yeah, or 25 years.
20, wow.
Because I'm only 20. But yeah, no, it's been really fun. And I actually, I used to do a lot of like, you know, I was a Spanish major in college. I lived in Spain. And so, I wanted to sound like a native and not be like, oh, look, there's an American trying to sound like a Spaniard.
Right.
So I really worked at like getting the accent down, which has come in really handy doing voiceover. So now I do a ton of sound-alikes for like celebrities for trailers and stuff like that if they're not available. I do a ton of that because I can recognize the patterns and
That's great.
the speech.
That's
things.
having that sense of, you know,
Musicality almost.
musicality. Yeah. I do a fair amount of that stuff too. And like to be able to dial into that celebrity impression or get the reference and be like, I've never done this guy. Let's see if I got it. Nope, don't. I don't.
Yeah.
I cannot do. I tried to do a Trump thing the other day and I'd done him like in a stupid corporate video years ago, but that it was. Oh,
The stakes are too high now.
now the stakes are much higher.
That's what it is.
That's right. Exactly. It's like we need someone who can do this. Can you do it? You're the one guy we know. But now it's like there's 7 other guys who've got a great Trump.
Yeah.
You were born in Toledo and then you moved to Cleveland and then
Well, sort of. I was born in Toledo. We moved to Cuyahoga Falls, which is just outside of Akron, Ohio, till I was 8, and then we moved to Minnesota, which is kind of where I call home. I mean, that's where I really grew up, was Stillwater, Minnesota. And I was there. I went to a teeny little private college up in Moorhead called Concordia for 4 years. And then I went back to the cities for a year. And then I went back to Cleveland for grad school at Case Western Reserve.
Why Case Western Reserve? Was it, did you have, what was the thread that led you back to Ohio?
I was looking to go to graduate school for acting, and my undergrad professor said that if I picked up a copy of American Theater Magazine and sort of thumbed through it, that the schools that were advertising in there would be a good spot to start. And I remember I was actually at a comedy show at the Brave New Workshop in Minneapolis, Minnesota with my dad. We were in the front row and I was flipping through American Theater, and I saw this advertisement for Case, and it said that they took 8 students every other year and that there's a full tuition waiver plus a stipend. I mean, they pay you to go there for those 3 years. Wow. And I said, oh, Dad, maybe I should go back to Cleveland. And he said, oh, yeah, they take 8 every other year. Go for it. Good luck, basically. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to try. So I put it on the list after researching the program a little bit more. And it was a program that actually had everything I wanted. It was conservatory style. So it was really less academic and more about acting straight up. And I auditioned for a bunch of schools and I got into 3. One was DePaul in Chicago, which did not offer any tuition assistance. And then Brandeis University in Waltham, Massachusetts, which also did not offer much. And then Case, which was a full ride. And I thought, well, that seems to work for my plans of someday being out of debt, which I haven't quite achieved, but someday.
Someday.
Has anybody there?
Oh, man. I don't know. It just seems... just right when you think you get out.
Oh, man. No.
So, but that was where we met, actually.
That's right.
In Cleveland.
When I was at Case Western in Cleveland, Kiff, you came and taught. I mean, you probably taught more than one, but the one I happened to take a one-day workshop with you at Second City in Cleveland when that existed for 2 years?
Yeah. There was a training center for about a year, and then it went away, and then the theater, and we did, I believe, 4 or 5 shows total. I came and did 2 main stage reviews there.
Right. It was really short, their run. And I, like I said to you earlier, I think I may have been there for even possibly the entirety of the run. I think it closed right after we left. But, at the time I was, really trying to see as much improv as I could. I was going to Cabaret Dada downtown Cleveland and to Second City in Cleveland. And, I heard about your workshop and I wasn't able to take a full workshop at Second City because of the rigor of my graduate school program. So I was able to do something like a day here and a day there. During that time, I also went to Chicago and took a one-day class from Mick Napier and a one-day class from Susan Messing, tried to get as much improv as I could at the time, but it was tough. But yes, that is where we met, those many years ago. Possibly the only time we
I think it was probably the only time we shook hands and had a conversation.
Yeah,
that's absolutely right. And I judged your work. And then and then told you what to do.
Yeah. How to fix it.
You guys have had an on-off friendship, whereas
we've had an on-off and off. That's right. Ours is more poolside. Right. Ours is more
rum punch.
Cleveland. Yeah.
Exactly. Going there.
But I will say about that time, and in particular the improv community in Cleveland, because after the theater closed, we had moved there with the intention of doing, Second City for a while.
Oh yeah, we'd be there for, we're talking now, I got to Cleveland in 01, August of 01, and I left in May of 04 after grad school. So it was in that time period.
We closed January 04.
Oh, there you go.
And, we went to Pickwick and Frolic, and performed there for a while, which was an amazing club. Amazing club. And just right down on West 6 across from the House of Blues is there now, but they had heated the street. I remember that was like a big thing. They had so when it snowed, you could still walk down that one little path because you couldn't drive down it. I remember meeting Dan Aykroyd in front of the House of Blues, and he had a couple girls with him and a motorcycle. And yeah, that was it. And we were standing there, me and Cody and Randall, who were in the cast together, and Nate Cockrell, and Dan is there, and we're all like
Cody Dove, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, reach you back.
Yeah, nice job.
Thank you.
Pulled it right out. And we see him, and we're like, Mr. Aykroyd, hey Dan, hey, we're Second City guys. And he went, did you guys know Del? And Randall went, I studied with him once. Hell of a guy. And then he vanished. We're like, well, okay, there you go. So there goes my great interaction with my hero.
Eichhorn? Randall
Har.
Oh, okay.
Randall Har. He came.
Now I'm conflating.
There is a Randall Eichhorn, but he's a siding guy. Does siding, aluminum. But
that's possible too.
That's right. I have the entire white pages of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County memorized.
I'm totally an outsider in this conversation.
I'm sorry.
Come on, Cissy.
Yeah, I mean, let me pour you.
So, my Cleveland knowledge.
Well, you guys worked together on the game Firewatch, which was actually, I think I tweeted both of you after reading about the magazine in Game Informer about this game, and it's such an exciting and interesting project. What was your experience? Both like, did you work together, or were you like Skype together or in the room together, or what were your sessions like?
So, Sean Vanneman, who wrote the project, wrote the game, and is an incredible human being. He, once he found his Henry, he was like, listen, this whole game is going to be dialogue, and I want it to be as real as possible. So, I have a home studio already, and Rich was willing to set one up. And so Rich set up a home studio, and then the three of us would Skype together, each of us recording on our own end, and they would splice it together.
Holy cow.
And it was, God, it's refreshing to be able to do a game like that, because usually it's just recorded in a vacuum.
Right.
You know, it's like you have like a random line that's like, I don't understand what you mean, but it could be said 15 different ways, and you might have a director that reads you in, and you might not. And so sometimes when it's put together, it's like, what the hell is she talking about?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But to be able to play off one another like that, and honestly, to be able to learn a lot from hearing Rich read was just, it was awesome. It was such a great experience.
Well, you know how, I mean, I presume what you're referring to there is because I have nothing to offer you other than a delivery of a line. And I think having somebody who you can, that whole old saw about how acting is reacting thing is having someone to react to, which is a sometimes unfortunately rare luxury in voiceover.
Yes.
It was really I think it enhanced the game. I mean, I think it enhanced how the game sounds. By the way, just because it popped in my head, Randall Einhorn was the DP on The Office, and also is now a comedy director in his own right. It's Always Sunny and things like that. Sorry.
That's right.
Go ahead.
That's right. It's his, I believe,
And
his second cousin, who also is named Randall, who does
good.
this. Well,
you are good.
I didn't realize you were talking about the director, the guy in town.
Why would I be talking about
That's
him?
right. But because aluminum siding, obviously.
Sorry, I didn't mean to change the subject, except that if I didn't say that now, I'd
but
never live it down.
Going back to, the game and why we're here. What I loved was that, so often you see just a standard line written and you just go with the first thing that comes to your head, but you played with the lines and you brought something totally different to everything. And I love that. Even watching playthrough, being like, God, I love the way, even like the panties line. Most people would be like, oh, there's a pair of panties. But you were like, panties. You just hear the disgust in your voice. Just those little nuggets. I just love that. I love that. I go back to that a lot.
Well, that's kind of you to say. I would say that I think it's neat to get to look like anything. Like when you read a script and then you go to a table read, you're like, oh, that's not necessarily how I heard that in my head, but
right.
I'll be darned, that's pretty good. I think that is sort of, look, I'm really good at voiceover. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm amazing.
Well, Kiff, I don't know if you know this, but this is basically my first big job in voiceover. Like I did a voice on LA Noire video game, but that was because like 98% of the cast of Mad Men was in the game LA Noire. So it was, I don't really count that. Plus it was less about voiceover and more about LA Noire was done with all these cameras and things like they filmed us.
It's all the motion capture and all that stuff.
It was like a whole thing. So this is my first it might be the first fully like professional job that I ever auditioned for and then got. Mm-hmm. I still am extremely new to this whole thing. I mean, I built that booth in my house now 2 years ago almost, right?
Yeah, we recorded for 2 years.
And it's that thing has now served me well because I've gotten to do some other things, but it really this was like my first gig, really.
So awesome.
So it was good.
And I'm happy to hear that, and I'm glad you're here to talk about that too, because I mean, what's interesting to me about each of you is different, and it's cool that that this is your first big VO thing, but you also come from a background of theater and certainly, with an on-camera experience from commercial to theatrical stuff and comedy and all those stuff. So to bring that skill set to this world where your proximity is 5 inches away from your audience's ear, and someone who came from Silicon Valley and come into the voiceover world and has worked on games before, you have that experience. So for the two of you guys to work together in that context and how much you learn from each other because your processes are unique and different, I find that really interesting. And I'd love to kind of explore that a little bit too, in terms of what challenges that you ran into in that process and how you worked through them. Because I'm assuming that a lot of the folks who listen to this particular show either listen because they're stepping into the VO world or are more established but are just interested in the topic, And so from that standpoint, it's kind of that's one of the things that's fascinating to me about this game.
Well, and one of the things too that we kind of made a conscious effort when we started working was that we live like a mile away from each other here in Los Angeles. We had never met, and we chose not to. So in that, I don't know if you played the game, but in the first scene where Henry arrives at the tower and Delilah is a little drunk, and I may or may not have been drunk during that session. But where there's that awkwardness of getting to know each other. Yeah, like that was how we got to know each other. And then and we record chronologically as well. And so going through the game, became a little more familiar with each session. And I think we only met twice during filming. And,
we really, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we met at the sort of the game developer GDC thing in San Francisco when it was sort of being announced in a way. And then, we met again here in LA for some sort of press stuff when Sean came to town. We did like an interview at Bigfoot Lodge.
At like 9 a.m.
But other than that, we really elected to let and I'm not a method actor by almost any definition, but I do find if there's something simple like that where, these characters don't know each other, it might not hurt. There may be then some small flavor that is naturally there by us really getting to know each other through those lines, the way that the characters do. Even if we're saying them 50 times, but, still getting to know each other through those lines.
Yeah, I think it would have been a really different experience had Henry been a good friend of mine or, something along those lines. So I'm really happy with the way it worked out. And again, Sean Vanneman just had all these great ideas that worked beautifully in the game.
Oh, it's so cool. It's so rare, like you say, to be able to play with someone and to build your relationship through the character's relationship.
Yeah. The other thing too, and I'm totally going to grandstand here because I can.
Please.
But when I've gotten a lot of people that like tweet or send me a message or whatever, and they're like, I beat the game in 2 hours. I'm like, then you missed the entire game.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there's missions that you have to go on and whatever, but the whole fun of the game is the dialogue and exploring this relationship and finding the poop trowel and finding like these little nuggets that 98% of people won't hear. Yeah. So I'm finding a lot of people going back and playing it for like a third, fourth time, doing different dialogue options. And
I had a guy come up to me after the play in New York, and said he had actually seen a different play in the building, but he knew I was in Buried Child. So he went to the other play and then he came and waited by our door and he said, hey, I'm just going to tell you now, I haven't seen Buried Child, but I have played Firewatch like 3 times. And he said, I just did one where like I went through and I didn't say anything to Delilah just to like see what it does to the relationship and make her do all the work basically. It may give her the silent treatment the entire time. And I sort of love that you can do, you're still going to get from A to Z, but the whole color of how you get there is different depending on how you interact with
Somebody
Delilah.
wrote an article about that I tweeted about and about like how depressing it was to like kind of shun Delilah. And I was like, Don't do it again.
Yeah, don't do that.
Come on, you guys.
It's a different kind of open world sort of gaming experience that you can make emotional choices rather than mission driven, or I'm going to go kill that or ride that elephant because you can't kill them in Far Cry 4. You can ride them. Sorry. Far Cry 4 is the game I've been obsessed with, and Primal. I love playing that when I feel like blowing things up. But like that notion of being able to, from the choose your own adventure books that we grew up with to being able to have that experience and really feel the emotional impact of making those choices.
Yeah. And I think, I heard Sean say in an interview, and it kind of stuck with me, that this is less Far Cry, if you will.
Yes.
And more Before Sunrise. It's more Richard Linklater exploring relationships, interesting conversations.
Philosophical,
learning another person by their wits, and a lot of people, it's funny. The biggest question I get is, how do you portray a character when you don't know what they look like? And I'm like, it's called voiceover. But I love that. I love that aspect of the game, because so often when you're introduced particularly to a female character in games, she's got giant boobs and she's, gorgeous, and it's either like love at first sight or like, hey, you're going to be in the buddy zone, But this one, you have to decide how you feel about her based on her character, based on her personality. And I love that. I love that. So if you shun her, you bastard, it's fine.
You get what you get.
You get what you get. But if you, if you decide to explore the relationship, then maybe it's something different. And I love that. I love that aspect of this game.
Oh, that's great. How did you prepare for, once, let's say you go through the audition, you book it like an audition, like you do, you book. But how did you go into the preparation for the knowledge of this is going to be a 2-year job. This is something we're going to really dig in, and it's a 2-person thing. I mean, it's a 2-hander. It's like prepping to do a scene with someone for a very long time for 2 years. I'm saying the same thing, but in multiple different ways. Just because.
Are you Trump?
Yeah, that's right.
Trump.
That's the one part of the impression that I kept, was saying the same thing, but with different emphasis. It's an old teaching trick. Well, what was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I don't know that we knew going in that it would be almost 2 years. I guess they had estimated, I'm trying to remember what Sean said in the beginning. I think he said somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 sessions, which I think it ended up being 10 sessions, something like that, 10, 11 sessions. At 4 hours a pop, which.
And 1,000 pages of dialogue.
Was it really?
1,000
A total
pages
1,000 pages.
But see, what's funny is it doesn't feel that way, because we would get. Sean would email us the night before, maybe the morning of, and say, here's what we're working on tomorrow. And you'd thumb through it and you'd be like, okay, well, and I don't know how you prepared. I read it in the moment. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just sort of, because we would always, if it was a long passage, we'd take a second, kind of read it, kind of get it, suss out where we're headed. But so much of it, you had to have Sean kind of breaking down, because it would be these story trees, right? You'd go down one path, and then he'd say, okay, there are 4 ways they could respond. It's these 4 responses. So but then each of those chases a new tale as well. So it's sort of an interesting,
or like, what's the tension? Like, is this lighthearted? Are you in the middle of the mystery? And,
Yeah. He would kind of say, well, we're going back to when, it's before you guys had this conversation. So she doesn't know this about you yet. And nobody's angry at each other. Okay, great. So there wasn't, I don't know that preparing was really a thing. It was just it was more like improv in a lot of ways, because you had to be open to responding to something in a myriad ways, right? And having all of those feel truthful, whether it's met with a joke, or met with hard sarcasm, or met with a sort of one-word terse answer, or whatever. You have to fill all of those, imbue all of those with a little truth of whatever the situation is. So they both have to be super specific and kind of vague for those moments where sometimes there are 2 ways to get to one response. And so you have to sort of leave it open enough that it could. I mean, it really was more interpretive and less. There was not a lot of prep work for me. I mean, it was just sort of in the moment trying to respond honestly.
Why don't you talk about your audition process? Because it was kind of interesting.
Well, mine was that somebody reached out to me on Twitter who worked at the Campo Santo offices, and we had exchanged tweets before about board games. And so I happened to follow him anyway, and he just sent me a DM saying, "Hey, we're doing this new game, Firewatch." And it happened to come at a time I had just Mad Men was wrapping up, and in preparation for Mad Men to wrap up, I bought myself the gift of an 8-week animation VO workshop with Bob Bergen.
Oh, great.
And, did this, really dove in, and it had been really fun, but I was now just at the end of that and was, I had a VO agent. I had done a couple auditions, but this is one where video games was one of the things I really wanted to try for. So I try not to get all sort of anxious about auditions, and I'm pretty good at it. I do a lot of auditions. I don't get that anxious.
Yeah.
This was like, oh, man, I really want this one to work. So
I think too, I'm just going to interject.
Yep, please.
If I can. They had gone through like 10 to 12 other guys. They'd listened to so many different people. They were trying to find their Henry. And one of the guys that Sean had written as like a touchstone in the specs was Harry Crane. And so when he told me that Rich was auditioning, I was like, huh. Okay, well, that's cool. Let's see if he actually takes it.
Yeah, that was early on when they reached out to me originally. They said, this was written sort of that Harry Crane was one, which was my character on Mad Men, was one of the sort of notions in their head, as was Louis C.K., which, while I don't sound a lot like Louis C.K., we do have a similar sort of dry cadence, dryness to our wit a little bit, and a similar cadence. By the way, that's, again, once more, not me comparing myself to Louis C.K. in any way other than a slight tonal quality.
This is the good thing about being a host. Rich, I don't know if anyone has ever told you how much you favor Louis C.K. And I don't mean necessarily, but I mean just in terms of tonality.
Sure.
So take that as a compliment. Thanks. And if you ever want to use that in some context, please feel free.
Great.
Well, and for me, I had worked with Sean and Jake, who founded Campo Santo, on The Walking Dead series.
They were the Walking Dead guys.
Yeah, so they used to be at Telltale.
Okay.
Sean wrote season 1 of The Walking Dead, which won 90 Game of the Year awards.
It was an amazing.
Made everybody cry.
Yeah.
So I worked with him on that. I was several different characters in that.
Chiefly,
universe.
though, Katja, right?
Chiefly Katja. Yeah.
Katja.
Who's the Belgian married to Kenny.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I had played through The Walking Dead in getting ready for Firewatch. We spoke, and then I remembered that Sean had said you were a character, and I just sort of forgot it as I was playing. And then later, when you guys reminded me who you were, I was like, oh my God, you're really good at this, is the thing.
And that was my first job. Firewatch was your first job. Katja was my first job.
That's awesome.
So Sean called me 3 years ago, and he was like, hey, I left Telltale. Jake and I started our own company. I loved what you did on The Walking Dead. I'm writing a new game with a female protagonist. Are you in? And I was like, yes.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
I mean, that doesn't happen.
No.
And, I knew any chance to work with those guys again, I will jump in head first.
I got to do a couple days on season 2 of Walking Dead. I played Walter on that.
Nice.
And just that, what was fascinating about working with in that process was that they gave you what they had recorded already.
Yeah.
And gave you something to react off of rather than just a spreadsheet. So they had some of what Melissa had already recorded.
She's so good. God, she's so good.
So to be able to,
she's the most awesome human being on the planet. I'm just
that's awesome.
Putting it out there.
That's great.
I'm actually working with them again on the Michonne series.
Awesome.
As Norma. So it's kind of nice to come back to the universe.
Yeah, no doubt. That's great.
But yeah, so once that got squared away, we found our Henry, and then we just jumped in, and it was fun. It was really fun. And then
we started pretty quickly after, because Sean just sent me a page copy, and I just read it. I think 2 different times with just slight variants, and then sent it to him. And
oh my God, he was like a kid in a can. He was so happy.
It happened very quickly.
Like, we found our Henry. Rich Sommer signed on. Oh my God, we found her. I was like, I could see him jumping up and down. It was so cute. But yeah, they were really, really stoked, and with good reason.
Well, it was, and I remember you saying that you were a little wary because this guy from a TV show was coming in.
I mean, you never know. Like you said, you hadn't done voiceover.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
I don't
blame you. Big transition. You know, some people can't pull it off, but you did, obviously, by just reading the reviews and everything else. Slow clap here.
Thank you.
Sissy,
Finally. Finally. I think
finally
it
earned your
certainly
applause.
helped that I was, if we'd been 1 year off, if this had been 1 year earlier that they had gotten a hold of me, I would have auditioned and tried, but I don't know. I think there was something about having just finished Bob's animation class. And while this isn't, the voice of Henry is, quite similar to the voice of Rich Sommer. It wasn't like I was having to do anything big in that way. It was just maybe having had 8 weeks behind a mic with somebody directing me, responding to a director, and sometimes having him go, "That's not what I said. I said this." I see. So listening to it, and I've worked with directors for years now, but there's something specific about a VO director because they're not, you're limited in how you can respond to a direction. You're limited in how you can make a character orally react to something, respond to something. And so it which is simple, I suppose, but it's less simple for someone like me where I have made a career so far of playing pretty low key dudes. And on Mad Men, where a response to a very serious event might be literally a tiny raise of the eyebrows, which can have like catastrophic emotional weight.
Right.
Don perhaps just blinking slower than he normally would can end a season. So like that's that, coming from that and having to rejigger how you respond to things was kind of the most exciting part of it for me.
Oh, that's great. And Bob is marvelous.
He's amazing. He's the best.
I studied with him back in Chicago and just a marvelous immersion.
He's been around for a million years and he's so smart and he wants you to succeed.
Yes.
And he's a competitive dude, but it's not about competing with you. It's about competing with himself. He wants to do the best that he can and will still not pull anything away from trying to help you do the best that you can do. He is just
I find that with a lot of voiceover people. I love voiceover.
It is a
people.
giving community. I genuinely have found that.
Yeah.
It's a funny community, I have to say, because
weird.
like a lot of them, and you have not been like this, but I have gotten to know a few over the past couple of years, and it is funny because you don't always recognize them by face. Yeah. There's sometimes a little bit of like, well, I was working on this thing and I did this, and obviously I had met so and so when I was doing this other thing, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not a thing I normally am used to, but okay, yeah, you tell me everything. I'm interested. Yeah. But that said, everyone has been remarkably generous. Right after I finished that VO class, I had the fortune of meeting a couple of VO people throughout the years of Mad Men, just sort of because some people watch Mad Men, and one of them was Maurice LaMarche, who,
Maurice,
we sat near each other at the Emmys one year and kind of hit it off and started making fun of each other and whatever. And right when I finished Bob's class again, and we were about to start Firewatch, I said, Maurice, can we go out to sushi and just? I'm not looking for a leg up. I'm not looking for you to help like in that way. I just want to sort of hear your stories about the business, just to kind of get an idea of what I was in for. And I called Seth Green and said, would it be cool if I just came and watched you guys record? So I went and sat and watched them record Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one day. And he took me around the Stupid Buddy studios where they do Robot Chicken. And we just to see what it is. I wasn't asking these people for a job. And I think that they knew I made that very clear. I was like, I'm not asking you for work. I am asking you because I'm so new to this. Yeah. And so I think getting to see a couple of studios and getting to see certain people directing and certain people working, it really helped me to feel more comfortable as we got in.
There's a real value to demystifying that stuff. And
absolutely.
Just that sense of feeling like, oh, this is something that people do. Yeah. And maybe, and I can do it. And it's accessible and it's, and this is like even little stuff like this is what my voice sounds like in a microphone in headphones. Yeah. It's a thing.
And that people want, this, someone listening might think like, maybe I have a different type of access. And sometimes I do because of Mad Men, whatever. Like I getting to go and watch, I've watched The Simpsons record a couple times. Like I was on The Simpsons once, but
awesome.
But beyond that, like getting to, I had watched them first. I had watched them first. And so, but that said, there are these people, this community is more helpful in that stuff. Like at the very least, you can write a tweet to Maurice LaMarche and you will get a response, or Rob Paulson, or any of these people. Like you can write to them and they will write back to you, and it's kind of amazing. I mean, they want you to understand, like you said, demystify the whole thing. I mean, that's unique, I think, to this part of this business, this show business. It isn't necessarily like that on camera. Some people are accessible on camera, on stage, and all that stuff. But these guys, it's a different thing.
I think if you do a lot on camera, there's just you have to naturally be a lot more guarded. I mean,
sure.
People can comment on anything that has nothing to do with your acting.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Which is, I think, really unfair about a lot of social media stuff. But yeah, no, most people in the VO community are super giving, and they want to help you find your path.
Yeah.
You know, I get a lot of people that are like, I have a great voice. People always tell me I should do voiceover. It makes them extra cash. And I'm like, it's not about your voice. Also, when I first started 5 years ago, the ratio of auditions to booking was like 150 auditions to one booking for a union commercial. So wrap your head around that and tell me it's just for extra cash.
Right.
And that was 5 years ago.
Right.
So,
and now
that's a regional radio spot.
No, that's the National Union.
That's National Union.
Mm-hmm. That was, but again, 5 years ago, it's gotten much more competitive.
For sure.
Man.
Yeah. Fun Maurice LaMarche story. You may remember me from such games as, I actually did a game with him, for the Batman Arkham Knight DLC.
Oh, yeah.
I played Nora Freeze. He was Dr. Freeze, and we got to record in the same studio.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
I was like, how do I not wet myself right now?
That guy, he's a total stud.
Good.
I mean,
So
he's
great.
so good and such a nice guy.
Such a nice guy.
And he's been, I mean, this guy's been a part of our consciousness forever. I mean, you have been hearing him since you had a speaker in your house.
Right.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Possibly in utero.
Yes.
That's right, in utero. and imitating him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same with like Paulson and Jess Harnell and some of these other folks.
Oh,
It's like, it's funny. His character on Futurama's named Kiff, and we were at Juice in Santa Monica. And they're like, Kiff, we're ready for you. And he was like, what? What's going on? And I was like, oh, thanks. He's like, wait. What's your name? I was like, my name's Kiff. He's like, that's my character. Ah! And we've been friends he was one of my first like Twitter people.
Amazing.
And just to jump on what you've been saying about the VO community, I do feel it's one of the most generous and embracing and supportive communities. And there is that sense, even in the room before you go into audition, that we're all going in for the same thing.
Job.
And, we're all doing a group and it's male and female for Home Depot. Who knows what's going to happen? But there's no vibing. There's no like weird energy. There's none of that. Y'all can go home. I just booked that.
Yeah. No.
But if I don't book it, like, God, I want my friends to book it.
Absolutely.
There's nothing that makes me happier than hearing, like, one of my good friends just booked a national, like, the voice of a national brand. And I'm so effing proud of her because she's been working her butt off. And it's something I auditioned for, but like she's been working so hard, and I'm so proud of her. Like, I love that. I love that about this community. I am everything that embodies the joy of the voiceover community, you guys.
Well, let me take a quick moment to share a very popular feature from the show. It's a pro tip, courtesy of our friends at Bookable VO. Here's Rick Wasserman and Greg. Here it is.
Hey, this is Greg Chun from Bookable Voiceover Coaching and Demos. Here's a quick tip for beginners. One of the single biggest mistakes that someone new to voiceover makes is that they focus on how skilled they are at changing their voice. Oh, I'm great at doing voices, you'll hear them say. I do great voices. Now, while the ability to affect your voice is definitely a great tool that will come in handy, focusing on that and leading with that as the main thing you bring to the table as a voice actor gets you off on the wrong foot. First and foremost, it's got to be about the performance, the acting. After you've gotten to the heart of a performance, then putting on a voice is great. It's the icing on the cake. But it's the acting that makes the difference between a read that sounds like a real persona that's been brought to life and a read that sounds like someone standing in front of a mic doing a voice. So for those of you who are still in the I do funny voices camp, stop trying to do voices. As you read each line of a script, stop thinking about how you sound and instead think about how you feel.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg, and Bookable VO. And if you're interested in getting more info, check out bookablevo.com. Awesome. We were just talking about that's Rick Wasserman is one of the guys from that, and he was the promo voicer for
The voice of AMC.
The voice of AMC. He told me that when he would do that promo, he'd put his arm on the wall in his booth, and then pretend to hold a glass of scotch,
Totally.
and stir it with his finger.
Oh,
Totally.
That's
And then
fantastic.
the look, then he would see his lover and lean in, and the tip of the microphone was his lover's ear, and he would say, "Tonight on Mad Men." And it was
That's
like
amazing.
that. It was such
the
a
tricks,
cool
man.
insight, right?
But here's the secret sauce, guys. I'm going to spill it all
All
for
right,
you.
spill it.
The magic of voiceover is the ability to say something interestingly and believably. And that's it. So if you can say something like Mad Men about a show that is sexy and is, current, and like you want to have a glass of scotch while you're watching the show, why not?
But make it believable.
But make it believable. Have that glass of scotch when you're talking to someone sexy.
Right.
Boom.
That's actually what Greg was just saying, that pro tip. I was listening to it where he was saying, the notion of, sure, it's fine if you can change your voice and make all these wacky voices, but chiefly it has to be well acted.
You have
And
to
I think
have the
that without that, it doesn't, there's no point. You can show me all these neat voices you can do. You can come into an on-camera audition and show me, well, I can put a mustache on, I can take a mustache off, I can put the sideburns on, I can brush my hair this way, I can brush my hair that way.
I can be a fireman.
That's fine. Yeah, I can put a fireman,
That's the
whatever.
best example of that I've ever heard. Yeah, look, remember that Tex Avery cartoon with the guy who's inside the TV? I have a bag of tricks. There's a big nose.
But if you can't act,
But if you can't
doesn't
act,
matter.
That's
Boom.
right.
Yep. Yep.
Oh
I love
man,
that.
that's kind of it's been of advice that has been requested from people over the years of how do I get into this thing. It's like, your acting skill is important. You need to nurture that. Go take an acting class, figuring out, that kind of stuff.
I would also like to add to that.
Yeah.
Acting obviously is the number one thing of being able to do this business. Also know what it means to run your own business. Because you are your own marketing. You are your own sales. If you don't have payment from a session that was last June, it's on you to figure that out. No one else is going to keep track of it for you. So know what that means seriously before you start trying to be an actor.
How do you, as someone who spent my time in prep for living this career, learning how to be an actor rather than taking the necessary business courses, I mean, I'm doing all right, but what steps can someone who's making this career, I'm saying this so completely backwards. So for an actor learning how to do business stuff, what do you think is the best way to learn that? As someone who studied, because you have a background
business degree.
in business degree.
I would say there are two aspects to it. There is the hard numbers, and then there's also the social ability of it. So number one, don't be a dick, right?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Yep.
It's a small business. It's a small industry. Everybody knows everybody. If you are a fantastic actor, a voice actor, and you have a terrible attitude, you'll probably work for a couple of years and that's it. Period. I've seen it happen to a couple of people in my short stint in this business, and it's a common thread. The other thing I would say is understand what the numbers mean. How many auditions are you going to have to do before you start booking? If you do that number of auditions and you're not booking, you need to take a good check and see what's going on. Maybe you need to go take an acting class with Bob Bergen, or find another coach or whatever. But also, look at your ROI, look at your return on investment. If there's a certain coach that you're working with and you've been working with them for a couple of years and nothing's changed, change coaches.
Yeah.
Dave Walsh, who is someone that we both know, I started working with him, and out the gate, I was booking promos and narration and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, that is money well spent. I guess understanding what that means. And also, are you going to break even this year? Are you going to make insurance this year?
Right.
Do you have a family to support? Does that mean you need to get a second job, or,
Oh my God, how do you spell Walsh? W-A-L-S-H.
Yeah, he's amazing. But a lot of it is common sense, but I think it's just putting the common sense together with, creative types who tend to kind of fly off the handle about certain things. You need to stay grounded somewhere. And now I'm babbling.
No, that's all right. How do you maintain that the groundedness? What grounds you? Is it family? I know for me that's part of it, and I can say, it's Sherry and Ilsa and my life and my family and all those things, and they are grounding. But often, I also feel the stress of I'm trying to keep my family unit together, and I'm the primary breadwinner, and this is an uncertain career.
Yes. And also, for me, I've done the 9 to 5. I've worked retail 9 to 9, I should say, in the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
If this doesn't work out, I'm going to be bagging groceries at Trader Joe's. So there's the essence of like, do this, make money, support your family, have fun, but have fun. Because after this, I get to go be an alien shooting lasers out of my nostrils at somebody. You know what I mean? It's like, this is a job. This is a job. People get to do this and make money. Oh my God. I'm so lucky. I love this. Anyway, that's my grounding. Rich?
How is your grounding?
Well, I think of grounding in a slightly different way, but in the notion of, people who I would call not grounded are people who maybe let this stuff, whether it's voiceover, whether it's acting, whether any sort of success, dictate their personality. And I think that, what I would say is having, struggled a lot in this career and having had moments of success in this career, what doesn't change is that you have to come home and like go to bed and stuff, in the same place and like, do, and talk to I have a wife and kids. Like I talk to the same people when I come home, and they don't, care. How fancy, of a person I just was talking to. Like they don't care. Yeah. And so for me, it's simply noting that everyone else in this business is doing exactly what you're trying to do. And coming at it sideways, my first extracurricular audition was for the Theater in the Round in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was 17 years old and I was auditioning for a play. And I got in there, and I recognized a guy who was a comedy sports guy, an improv guy from Minneapolis. And I sort of said, I've watched you do improv. And he said, what are you auditioning? What part are you auditioning for? And I showed him the part, and he was like, you're a little young for that. Are you, what monologue are you doing? And I showed him a monologue. He said, we have it written down here. Are you memorized? And I was like, well, no. And he was like, if you're going to do this, you got to be memorized. And I was like, okay. I mean, completely obliterated me in the room, just destroyed my confidence, whatever. And then I went in there, laid a giant egg, and of course could barely set foot in that theater again my whole life. Yeah. But I think it's, it's keeping in mind that while this thing is important to you, it's important to a lot of people for them for different reasons. And I think that it doesn't, there's just nothing to be gained from, being a jerk. And I think that I found quickly the type of person I try to carry myself as, that I want to carry myself as in this business. And that's, and it bleeds out into my representation. I've had the same manager since I did my grad school showcase in 2004, chiefly because no one is ever scared to hear from him. If they see him calling, they're like, oh, it's Harris. They're like, oh, that's nice. Whereas I've had agents in the years where people have said, I saw your agent calling today, and I was like, ugh. And I said, oh, that's a problem. I don't, then I talk to that agent, and either that gets fixed or they're not my agent anymore. Yeah. And there have been periods of 3 or so years where I didn't have an agent because I don't like that I don't want that leading me into a room, preceding me into a room. I want them to be happy I'm coming. And, I think that that's important. So for me, that whole notion of staying grounded is simply remembering that people like to be treated well, and there's nothing to be gained from not treating them well. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And true. And and a great, I think, it's cool that I think ultimately what I want to do in this business is just kind of have fun and enjoy being around interesting people and encourage people who are coming behind, the way I was encouraged by the people who came ahead.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, it's cool to hear that notion and variations on that notion expressed by you guys as well. And it's one of the joys of doing this thing is that you don't always get to be reminded of that from time to time.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because it is so much about diving into copy or getting it, turning around or getting someplace else to be able to sit and just reflect on what ultimately the grounding force of just trying to make things a little bit better and being a good representative of humanity. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think there's always somebody who's going to try to cut you down. You know, I had someone in my early training as well who tried to pull that with me, and it was a great learning experience because I had a similar situation. It wasn't a play, but it was, you know, a voiceover thing, and I fell flat on my face, and it was pretty widely publicized in my little group of people that I knew up there. But that's the one I stick in the back of my head and go, yep, I let her get to me. That's on me. Next, you know, and just move on because life's too short. It's too short, and I love this too much to let somebody's opinion like that wreck me.
That stuff, that confidence stuff is deep, man. When someone attacks that, when someone hits your tree of confidence with a hatchet, it's really that happened to me right when I moved here from elsewhere, and it messed with me. And I was like, why? Yeah. Why? For what purpose?
So when I first moved to LA and I was auditioning with my agent, Dean Pinero at Abrams, who I love, I wanted it so bad. Oh, I wanted a book so bad. I just moved my family here and my husband was still commuting to San Jose and it was on me, you know, to make this move worth it. And my agent called me up one day and he said, Cissy, I smell it in your slate. I smell the desperation in your slate. And if I can smell it, they can
Cissy
smell
Jones.
it. I was like, Cissy Jones. He was like, knock it the F off. Just say your name and go into the copy. You're good. You deserve to be here. Go. And that's what it took. It was that little boost of confidence from someone that I admired and respected to say, listen, stop it.
Yeah.
and that's what it took.
That's great.
Yeah.
There was something I overheard Bill Holmes say in a conversation on a podcast about just speaking off of that confidence element of people freaking out about copy where the copy doesn't necessarily align to who they are. Mm-hmm. So let's say I get a McDonald's spot, for example, that says that we're looking for young male 20 to 30, and that be someone who's over 30 go, I'm sorry, there must have been some mistake. I'm outside of the specs. and
said no voice actor
right,
ever.
Said no voice actor ever. Said, female 70, black. Can I read for this? I just saw it on the stool because I got a black woman voice I can do. It's sort of a Cicely Tyson I've been preparing. It's, but Bill's comment was, relax. Someone added it up that you should get a copy of that piece of copy. Mm-hmm. So just take confidence in that and read it.
Every now and then I get specs that's like, we want a man, 35 to 60, voice of God, blah, blah, blah. Right. And my agent will just throw me in just to see.
Why not?
Sometimes I book them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. But, you know, it's just to shake it up a little bit.
That's right.
Because why not? Otherwise, I could put on my golden pipes and we go in a world. It doesn't work. It's already taken.
Ah, man. You guys, this has been the fastest hour ever.
Has it been an hour?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Rich, how can people find you on social media if they want to follow you and tweet at you and chirp at you and look at your family photos?
I am. Okay.
That got awkward.
Family photos, just stop me on the street. If I have my phone with me, I guess I'll show you. But for other things, Twitter, I am just at my name, Rich Sommer, RichSommer. I'm there. And if you want to talk about board games, which I usually will talk about, I have a second Twitter, which is Cardboard Cast. I have a little thing for board games, and I used to have a board game podcast, but I still use the board game podcast handle. Hey, Cissy, how can people find you?
How could people? Well, hang on. What is it? No, I'm curious. What is it about board games that you love?
That's a whole other.
That's a whole nother hour.
There's a lot about them that I love, but chiefly that you can sit down around a table across from people that are human beings and look at them while you agree to the rules on this little piece of paper for a little while. And, I sort of think it's lovely. You sort of decide we're going to pretend for an hour that the only way we interact is by pushing this thing 1 to 2 spaces orthogonally, not diagonally, or whatever. Like, I love that. I sort of love that. I think there's something beautiful in that.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Sissy, how can people find you?
I'm on the Twitters at Cissy Speaks, and I'd love to hear from people. I have a Facebook page, but I don't do much with it. So
yeah, I hear you. My Facebook page is becoming more and more about here is my wife and my child, and here's a Taekwondo video.
So when I was in the Silicon Valley, I worked in a network security company. So there are no pictures of my kids on
Really?
there, ever.
All right. So now I'm making Facebook different.
I'm just saying as well.
You guys, this was just fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. I hope you guys had a good time. And if you don't already play Firewatch, check it out. If you don't already play The Walking Dead or watch Mad Men or what other things do you guys have coming up that you would like to mention or share with people that you can talk about, because there may be things that you can't?
There's a movie that's still out now called Hello, My Name Is Doris. That's,
Sally Field.
Is in that I am less in than her, but still in. And the show Love that's on Netflix. I did an episode of that I don't know if I'm maybe going to do more. Well, hopefully. We'll see.
And the John Oliver segment.
I did do the John Oliver segment a couple of weeks ago. That was very fun. So. So most of where you can find me is stuff that already happened. So nothing new to report, Kiff.
Okay.
Back to you.
Thank you very much, Rich. And now we're turning to Susie with Susie.
Susie. Where's Susie?
I don't know. Susie. Hi. I'm a 70-year-old black lady.
See? He's got it.
I set myself up. Thank you, Susie, for that report and for simply introducing yourself to our audience. Sissy, what you got going on?
Adrift just released last week, which is the Lost in Space title for Oculus Rift, and I'm the playable character in that and a side character. I've got a bunch of video games coming out that I can't talk about. Yeah. And if you listen real closely on the Huntsman trailers, you'll hear me as Charlize Theron.
Right. Oh, nice job.
Really?
The Huntsman.
Nice
rated
job.
PG-13. April 22nd.
I love voice matching.
God bless it.
It's so crazy and fun.
God bless it.
I do mostly Vince Vaughn. That's where I end up doing.
I've been doing a ton of Charlize.
That's great.
I hope she keeps making movies.
I hope she keeps
Charlize,
making movies.
if you're listening, please keep making movies.
She was just about to hang up her hat. And she would happen to be listening to this podcast because she does every week.
That's right. Every week.
This is the 21st episode. Is that right?
Yeah, 21st episode.
She's like, I've been here for 21 weeks.
She's already liked
Long-time fan, first-time caller.
That's right.
That's right.
And she was about to hang it up, but look at you. You just rescued millions of moviegoers.
Thank you.
Huzzah.
Thank you very much. Keep us going. And if you get an opportunity, if you haven't seen Batman vs. Superman, please go check it out and look for me as a cop, which is fun. And also, I keep forgetting to mention this to the listeners. Please check out allovervoiceover.com. The website, there is an active blog, and you can sign up for updates when I sit down and type another blog. Anyway, so please feel free to check that out. And thank you again so much to Bookable Voice Coaching and Demos for sponsoring the show. You can find them at bookablevo.com, and you can find me right here next week with an all-new episode of All Over Voiceover with Kiff VH. Peace. Thanks. This has been All Over Voiceover with Kiff VH. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please go to iTunes and give us a positive rating. It truly helps. Follow me on Twitter at KiffVH, or on Instagram at KiffVH, or on Vero at KiffVH. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon. Claim victory and depart the field.
Werewolf?
There,